again, depending on if you have any questions, feel free to hop in, unmute your mic. I provide an introductory video, and maybe some of you saw it, maybe some of you didn't, but a little bit about myself. I've been teaching for about 3 years now, about 1.5 years for MacEwan University here in Edmonton. And my background was also, while doing my master's, working with prep schools, doing very much this with all grades, all ages, and working with younger students actually helped me prepare for working with adult students. And there's not that much of a difference when it comes down to, engaging students, getting them to enjoy the material as well as try and engage with it and absorb it. So that's just a quick little spiel about me. But I think probably what's the most important at the beginning is to ask you guys, hopefully there's some parents that are joining us today, and ask you, what would you want for your kids to get out of this? Because there's a lot of things we can do. Grammar is 100% going to be a part of it. But when it comes down to writing, there's all kinds. We have creative streams, we have academic streams, there's journalism. Maybe you just want to be better written for business, for emails, right? So maybe at this particular moment, I can open it up for any parents. If you have any questions for me, now's the time, and ask me anything at all before I get going. I'll give you guys a moment. Remember, you're all muted. So if anyone has a question, feel free to hop in. Nobody? Oh, Sylvia, we have Sylvia wanting to join us. No? Okay. All right, well, if you guys don't have any questions for me, that's totally okay. That's totally fine. Let's hop into what we would think a sort of breakdown of the class can look like. So the material that's been provided for me is going to be kind of a building block situation, okay? The way I envision it is, well, it was discussed to be a 10-week course. So you visualize that really quick on my handy whiteboard here. I would have average classes on 1, 2, but on the third class, I'd like that to be a little bit more creative writing orientated, or at least literature orientated. So on these days, even though grammar is always going to be a part of the package, I'd like to work on not just writing, but sharing that writing and getting used to presenting and getting used to being able to, well, represent yourself, not just in front of a classroom, because that's going to be very handy, but if you have to do any kind of public speaking, right? These all become part and parcel with the benefits of becoming more pronounced with your writing, understanding the language a little better, and when you get to the more advanced levels, how to persuade. And that's very important when it comes down to academia, no matter the level. Okay, so why don't I pause really quick? Does anyone have any questions for me? Okay, doesn't sound like it. All right, so why don't we talk about what an average class can look like and what kind of material we'd be working with. So as far as what we have for standard text, okay, every class, what I would like is to start off with about 10 minutes of free writing. I'm going to explain why that is. So that means that once the clock has struck and it is time to get going, everyone is going to quiet down and then write by hand for 10 minutes, okay? Now I'm going to prompt them, and this can be prompted in a couple different ways. One, I generally can just assign them something. I can ask them to do me a little journal entry. I could ask them to come up with a quick story. But generally what is fun is when we come up with a prompt together. So usually I've had a lot of experience and fun playing something called the hat trick game. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Class has started. Everyone's quieted down. I'm then going to ask every student to give me an object off the top of their head, or a place, right? So someone could say forest, someone could say shoe, someone could say wizard. And all of a sudden we have to write for 10 minutes quietly a story incorporating these three things. The goal is not necessarily to write something really well. It's about getting used to putting something on paper. It's also about quieting your mind and getting used to the process of writing, okay? Because even though we're now, well, very technologically centric, right? We use more laptops these days, we use tablets. writing by hand is still the most efficient way to learn something, or to at least get your mind more flexible for new material, okay? There's been a lot of research on this, and that's why students who do some more handwriting and not just taking notes and what have you by typing tend to absorb more. Okay, so that's the idea for the first chunk of class. And hopefully by the time we're at, say, week 6 or week 7, we can extend that writing time, maybe to say 15 minutes. Now, there's a lot of things that become part of that challenge. It's not just about sitting down and creating something. Okay? It's also about being able to do it quietly for that amount of time. Okay, because these are going to be habits that you begin to learn, and that works down the road for when you have to sit down and study for something. There are 3 steps to learning anything. Doesn't matter if you're doing math, if you're doing biology, psychology, English. There are 3 steps to truly learning something. And they are always reading something, writing something, and then explaining something. Okay, so generally when you do these 3 things, these are goals that I'm going to have for every student, okay, to get to this sort of level. That's how you actually can retain information. So that is how you can avoid things like cramming in the future, rather than just understanding it the first time around. Okay, but we're going to be dealing with people with different students with different skill sets, different comfort levels, and it's my job to sort of tailor the class as we go, all right, and make sure that even though we're trying to give everyone a nice general education on, say, the punctuation, on the grammar, but no one's getting left behind, because there's going to be different things that matter more. Someone's going to be better at some things than others. That's me to catch. Okay, so that's what, say, the first 10, 15 minutes of a class can look like. Then we would have a short time period of sharing those stories. Again, it's not important that anyone has to share them, but I am hoping that students will be willing to. This also benefits us in sort of creating more of a classroom experience. So I'm just going to take a very quick tangent, but right now I'm finishing up a university online only class. And I have to say the experience for the students seems to be lacking when it comes to engaging with each other, right? So, I mean, when we sit down, everyone's going to want to be quiet, just like they are right now. And that's okay. My job is to be able to still keep explaining and adding information and entertaining a little bit as I go, if you're not comfortable sharing. But I do need to get students to a level where they are comfortable engaging with each other. Because every time you say, write a silly story or a serious story, okay, we will create an atmosphere where it's okay to share it. We will be respectful. And thirdly, this is always going to add to skill sets down the road. Public speaking, I can't stress this enough, is probably the most important thing you can get used to. And it all comes down to your understanding of writing. Because if you can write well, generally it will transfer to speaking well with practice. Okay, those things don't necessarily go hand in hand, but with time, they do match up. Okay, so let's say we've done our exercises. I've talked with you guys. We've had our little creative writing time. We've done our sharing. What kind of material are we dealing with? Well, the textbook that I've been given, so I'm going to screen share with you guys, is broken down for sort of a 30-week module setup, but we would definitely be able to tackle 3 weeks at a time. But I'll show you what I mean, okay? That sounds like much more than it is. So give me one moment. I just have to share screen number 2. Okay, I believe, so you should all be able to see. Can anyone confirm that you can see what I'm showing you? On my side, I just have my mouse moving around. Wendy, can you see what I'm showing you?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Perfect, I have 2 screens set up, and that's why I can't tell if it was sharing it or not. I have a side TV here. Okay, so this is generally what our material will look like. So the first 2 weeks of class, okay, so week 1, week 2, my goal would be to treat that as more of a crash course for punctuation. Okay, so if you look at our examples, we have got apostrophes, right? You notice how they're all missing. We're missing capitalization. Okay, now these are going to be easy enough to go through in class, but I would also be coming up with my own examples and also assigning those for homework, because it's very much a process of repetition when it comes down to this. Some students are going to be better at it than others right off the hop, but with, again, trying it out, seeing where you went wrong and recopying it, it will slowly make sense. But it's all about just reinforcing. So week 1, we've got the theme of ball games. All right, Jackie Robinson, here you go. Then we have run-on sentence, okay? Dates, where should a comma go here? Okay, so we would go through these together, and I can actually mark these on in real time, but what I would really like to do is have a marked version that I would show students after going through and asking them, okay? Because it's not going to be just about me showing them. They have to take a run at it. They have to try. So when I show an example, they'll give me a yes, no. I'll give them the corrections, but I'll also be engaging with the whiteboard quite a bit. Because as I get to know students, I'm going to get to know your likes, your dislikes. Oh man, I'm not going to jump out and take a gamble. I'm going to show my age. And let's say if Pokemon was really popular, I would start incorporating Pokemon into my examples on the board. I'm not going to do that because I know a lot of you have already accidentally insulted. I'm sure you're all into much cooler things these days. Or if you're into Pokemon, that's okay. But the point would be repetition. So for week 1, we've got apostrophes, we've got dates. Again, where do we want to put in, or sorry, appositives, dates, commas. These are all just different cases of where commas need to go. And it depends if you're telling a story, if you're giving a date, if you're giving a list. These are all very different things. We're going to be going through that piece by piece. All right. So we got some examples. Oh, Brooklyn Dodgers need to be capitalized, okay? Now, I don't want to give you all of this because the students are going to actually see this later, but okay, week 2, right? We're getting into more examples. These symbols are going to look a little confusing at the moment, so why don't we hop up here really quick. Okay. There is a sheet up here for standard symbols that I can use when correcting. I'm not necessarily going to use those. It depends how I give you guys feedback. And I'll talk with Wendy about this as well, because if I'm going to mark something by hand, I would use some symbols similar to this, but I would also be making comments. I wouldn't just leave it for you to have to go find a symbol, then find out on here what that means. I'm going to say in plain language what needs correcting or what have you. So don't get too distracted by what these little corrections mean on here. But this does make sense. On April 8th, comma, 1974, comma. Okay. So I would have already shown the blank version to students. They would have tried it out. We would have said, okay, let's go and look what the answer is. Here we go. They have their example. But then we would come up with another example, okay? And kind of, again, just keep coming up with different permutations for apostrophes, for commas, for colons, for semicolons, which we'll probably avoid. It'll make everyone's life much easier, okay? All right, so we're already on to week 2. Again, the sentences get a little bit longer, and we are going to be talking about phrases and clauses. Some of this, we're going to get into more detail, and some of it, we're not going to have to dive in as hard, because the thing about a clause is they're very intuitive, okay? So when I start talking to you guys about examples of a sentence, and how can we rearrange it, but it still sound like it makes sense, okay? That's where clauses come in. But I have found, even at the higher levels, if you get too lost in the terminology, it complicates something that isn't all that difficult. Okay, so we're going to be working by reading and the hearing. What makes sense? Okay, got to kind of work on your instincts, right? Because I'm not always going to be there to help correct you. And that's the point of a class, right? To take you from, say, an amateur, bring you up to a higher level by the end. That's what I should be doing. Okay, so let's keep going. Here are examples for week 2, correction. So in a 90-minute class, we would be able to fairly quickly go through, say, that material. Okay, so I'll just go back to the top. That's 3 weeks worth, according to this. But really, each sheet is only about 5 examples. Okay, so we'll be looking at about 15 examples in a class and really honing in and spending more time on whatever's giving the class more difficulty than others. If everyone understands apostrophes well, then maybe we'll spend more time on colons. Okay, so we'll kind of have to gauge that. So that is what week number 1 would look like. So I mean, I don't want to bore you guys, but let's show you then what would week 2 look like. All right, instant replay. We really enjoy these sort of, I want to say sports themes. Okay, we're dealing with homonyms now. Would you believe that bricklaying are the traditional, okay, we also have Okay, the wrong conjugation here. Okay, so for one, would, we have the wrong spelling of would. So we got to start watching out for what sounds right but looks wrong. Okay, so that's kind of the flavor of week number 2. Again, we're going to be re-hitting and emphasizing punctuation. I can't stress enough how much those are the building blocks of your sentences. Okay, back to apostrophes. Here you go. Okay, so I mean, not to bore you guys, let's get back down to week 6. Okay. Okay, so very consistently. So this is what kind of material we're looking at from, as what we'll be working from the official textbook and what gets assigned. And then I would also be coming up with my own really Word document made examples for homework as well. My hopes is that not only are we going to be working with the material that is assigned here, right, but also with how I speak, how the students get used to me. When I use this whiteboard, and when we come up with questions together and we start correcting them, that's where we start becoming more familiar with the rules of language in general. So I want that to transfer over. So if I just always assign, here's what was in the textbook, and that's it, it'll always sound a little bit alien from how we engage in class to the textbook. So my job is always to kind of make it a bit of a hybrid and not too much of a leap, make it more of a nuanced approach. Okay, so that's about it. I mean, it goes all the way to 30. You'll notice we don't have a lot of deviation there. Okay, it will start to get a lot larger, some of our examples here, but that's fair enough because we're going to be starting off with sentences. And then some of those examples turn to 2 sentences. And then once you get about 3 or 4, you're into a paragraph. And now we're getting more into report writing, longer paper writing, or at least what it looks like. Okay, okay. So that is a little bit of a crash course of at least what our textbook looks like. Okay, we got some sheets for signing. Oh, very happy. Why don't we take a look at what some of the assessments would look like? So I believe there can be 2 major assessments split into, makes probably most sense after week 5 and on the 10th week. And this is how the breakdown would look like. Okay, so when we're doing some grading, actually this probably might not make sense until I show you what the exam looks like. How about that? Did I go too far? Maybe I did. Nope, that's still our breakdown. Oh no, that was it. These are our, oh, those are our answers. I hope no one's watching that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so when we come down to testing, there's going to be a multiple choice component. This is what it looks like. Okay, a tropical storm formed in the Atlantic Ocean is moving towards South Carolina. Okay, now we want to pick which one belongs. Makes sense. I mean, this is a format a lot of students are going to be already familiar with. Okay. Now we have about, I believe, 20 questions. Yeah, 20 total. And then we'll go back up to our breakdown. So this is where you're going to actually be able to see what your students got, or our students, your children, I should say. Oops. There we go. 15 out of 20, 75%, 5 out of 10 here, 3 out of 30. Probably makes a lot of sense. You've seen breakdowns like this before, I'm sure. Any questions? Anyone want to hop in? Everyone's good. I'll take the silence to mean we're okay. Now, just so the parents know, I suppose, this is also a breakdown of what our tests look like. Okay, so nouns and pronouns. Sorry? Did somebody say something? No? Okay. Well, anyway, that was just a breakdown of what our distribution of questions are like. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, about 9 questions to do with nouns and pronouns. Here's how many questions we have to do with using verbs. This means questions 4, 7, and 8 had to do with adjectives, adverbs. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Those are more the nuts and bolts, more the behind the scenes thing, part of the class. For a lot of students, I'm sure you're saying, why do I need to see this? Well, it's how you're graded, but this is more for your parents. And for me, I suppose. Okay, so that is looking at the grader material. Then we also have what your assessments will look like. This is what we call rinse repeat. Okay, so every chunk of class for the lecture component, I'll probably spend about 20 minutes introducing whatever the new material is. Okay, so for example, week number 1. We're going to be hitting off some punctuation. We're going to talk about some commas, apostrophes, period, capitalization. Okay. So I'll probably spend about 20 minutes writing examples on the board, showing you different methods for using punctuation, what different cases they can be used in. Okay. And then we'd hop into some examples and I'll ask students to try. Okay, what goes here in a sentence? What goes here in a sentence? Okay, let's try that. Okay. And it's always going to be okay to make mistakes. In fact, I need students to make mistakes. Teachers, parents make mistakes, and that's where we learn the most. So this is where it's going to be very important. I'm hoping that students are going to be unmuting some mics and engaging a little bit with what I put up on the board. Again, not a big deal if you guys are shy. I can just kind of treat it as a, well, I'll just pretend I'm getting a call and response. But again, the more we engage, the more I can tailor things for your interests as well. All right. Couple of little side notes about the class, or really the fundamentals of any writing class. So, I mean, I was kind of hoping to get some feedback from what the parents are looking for, but I think we can all agree better writing skills, more confidence, and a better understanding of grammar. Okay. So what does this all mean? Well, an English class, or at least where my specialties come from, is rhetoric. Now, a lot of you might be, well, what is that word? Not a big deal. It's really the art of communication. Okay. So a lot of my research, a lot of my background comes into not just creative writing and short story writing. I've also been an editor and a lead editor on a couple publications. I've got one handy. I think I showed Wendy before. Okay. Doesn't really matter. All these things kind of come from the same place. And that's what I wrote up on the board earlier. So I want to show you something. You take language, you take communication, you take thought, you take writing, you jumble it all together. Okay. That is English. That is the art of literature. Okay. Now you're thinking, okay, those are four things. What does that mean? A better understanding of grammar means that you're going to be able to better convey your thoughts. And if you can better convey your thoughts, you'll become a better writer. The better writer you are, the better you are at communicating. Now it depends what you want to communicate. Maybe it's a research paper. People will have to read that. So it starts over again. Better you understand your language, the better you understand how to convey your thoughts, the better you do your writing, the better you're communicating. And it continues. It's not a set cycle. It's not necessarily a flow chart, but these are the elements, the core pillars of anything when it comes down to writing. If you want to write a speech and then present that, maybe it's a ceremonial speech, maybe it's a birthday party, maybe it's a funeral. Okay, there are rules on how to write something, how to persuade somebody. And really my job is to make sure that we tighten that up. A lot of this is also going to be based on getting feedback from my students. And, oh, I think someone, you know what? I think I can stop sharing now. I didn't know we could all write on that. But yeah, sorry, I got a little bit derailed there. But the point is that regardless of where your guys' interests lie, whether it's going to be creative writing, maybe you want to go into journalism, maybe you just want to, excuse me, write better business memos. Okay, all of this is applicable. That's the crash course, at least of what we'll be looking at. I mean, it's pretty broad. There's a lot of you sitting in and listening. So really, if you have any questions, now's a good time to hop in. Yeah, we're looking at about a 10-week breakdown. We're going to be looking at 3 different themes per week. And every third week, we're going to have a little bit more of a creative writing centric focus. Okay, so that's going to be things like looking at proverbs, fables. What's the point of myth? Okay, we still want to talk a little bit about literature and story, but I don't want to have to spice that into every class because it's really about working on your writing skills. All right, let's see. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're still looking at the 4:30 mark. We can go back through some more of the material, but really in all, this is what we're looking at for a class. Maybe Wendy, do you have any questions, or if you'd like to lead with any, or?
Could you please give us some explanation for the first unit?
For the first unit? Sure. Okay. So do you want to go through like a class, or is it what to expect?
Yes.
All right, one second. Okay. So let me go back to shared screen. Okay. Okay, so give me a second here. Let me just erase my whiteboard. All right. So for our first unit, okay. Now, for this part, if we're going to be, so Wendy, sir, are we demonstrating a class or are we just re-explaining the material?
For demo for the class.
I'll need a couple students to hop in then if we're going to kind of engage like a class. I've kind of gone as far as what the silent can go. I can go over it again, but if we're going to try and reenact a class, I need some kids to hop in.
Yes. Can a student open your camera, please?
Hello?
I'll hop in.
Hi. Who is this? Is this Adam?
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me okay? Oh, your microphone is muted.
I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. All right. Okay, so Adam, do you mind being my partner on this quick little example?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to work a little bit with commas. How familiar are you with a comma?
I think I know what commas are.
That's okay. That's totally okay. Okay. What in your own words, how would you use a comma?
Basically, I would use it when there's when you want to say an and, but you already said an and, I would put a comma there. Also, if there's words like but, you would put it before there. And basically, when you say it out loud and you're out of breath, you should put a comma there.
That's all correct. No, that's right. I mean, a lot of this actually comes down to actually spoken tradition. So way back in the time of the Greeks, before we even had paper to write on, you're right. That is where you take a breath. But generally, where you take a breath is also where a new clause might start. And you were mentioning a comma before an and. We actually call that an Oxford comma. I'm impressed that you know that actually. But that's all beside the point. What we're going to do then is, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot. We're going to take a look at this example. Can you see it here with Jackie Robinson?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a couple errors right off the hop in this first sentence.
Capitalization. Where is it?
What's that?
There's capitalization errors.
There absolutely are. Okay. So you get bonus marks for those. Where can you see the capitalization errors?
Jackie, J has to be capitalized. Robinson, R has to be capitalized.
Right.
And Brooklyn, B has to be capitalized. And Dodgers, D has to be capitalized.
That's right. And why would those need to be? Well, we know that because that's what, a city, right?
Yeah, and I think it's like a team of baseball players because they're talking about that.
That's right. It's the name of a team. So when it's the name, it has to be capitalized. That's how we know it's a team at all. But we're also missing our commas in here, right? So we can use, sorry?
It'd be Jackie Robinson, comma, the first American Major League Baseball player, comma, played his first game with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947.
Correct. Way to go. So no commas, not a big difficulty for you. All right. Well, do you mind if I bore your help one more time for the next one? Because now we're introducing dates with commas.
I'm not so sure about this one, but
that's okay. Actually, hold on, Adam. Do we have anybody else that wants to hop in and give it a try?
Sure.
Who do we have there?
This is Aaron. Hello.
Aaron? Sorry, I don't. It just doesn't always show me who's talking at once here. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to find you in my. Oh, give me a second. Let me. Okay, who am I talking to?
Oh, hello.
Aaron? Hi. Okay.
Just use commas to fix the.
Yeah.
All right. So April 8th, comma 1974, and then Babe Ruth held the American record for home runs. I mean, I would put a period there and then capitalize the H, but it doesn't offer those suggestions.
No, that's okay. So that is
then-
kind of lesson number one. We're going to be dealing with a lot of rules of punctuation, but the
Oh,
fundamental rule of punctuation is that they usually serve more than one purpose, which means there's more than one way to correct a sentence. So, Aaron, you know, before somebody, I didn't realize that you guys could write on this too. Can you write on the screen, Aaron?
oh, I can't. Okay, I think
Or see if you
so.
can. Someone
Comma.
could earlier.
Period
We
Yep.
can-
there. I would capitalize that. That's horrible. And
That's
then
okay.
comma there.
That's okay. This is just a rough run. Okay, so until April 8th. Okay, you would comma, and you would also want a comma though after 1974.
Yeah. Oh wait. Oh yeah.
There you go. I want everyone to take a note of the bravery of Aaron and Adam. I know it's very difficult to write on the screen. We'll see if we can come up with an easier system for that. But that's correct. And to be honest, that's probably how I would correct it as well. It's very simple, 2 sentences, short and sweet. Okay. But you could also work with a comma if you wanted to. Okay, it looks like it's coming with us. Can you, Aaron, can you erase that? Oh, we lost him. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a couple people talking at once. Who am I talking to? Oh, okay, maybe that was just some mumbling from one of our microphones. But okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's see. I just got Adam and Aaron. Does someone else want to try? Is that Jesse? No? Okay. Might have just been someone coming close to. Are your guys' microphones just muted if you're not talking? That must be why it's hopping in and out with that other one. That's okay. Okay, well, who wants to give this one a try for capitalization, punctuation, using the right word?
Me, I guess.
Who's me?
Justin.
Justin Zhang?
Yeah.
Hi, Justin. Okay, let's give it a try.
Would.
So we're looking at this one.
Okay. Would you believe that over 7,000 years ago, comma, ancient Egyptians liked to bowl on alleys a lot like ours, period?
Kind of an awkward sentence, but yeah, that's right. So would you believe that over 7,000 years ago, ancient Egyptians liked to bowl on alleys a lot like ours? I didn't know that. Actually, I think I did actually. I think the Aztecs had a similar game too. But we would probably want to add one other comma in there. Would you believe, comma, because we're setting up what is it that we're going to believe? This is the first bit. Would you believe over 7,000 years ago, ancient Egyptians liked to bowl on alleys like ours? Now, the reason we can tell that this comma goes here and this comma goes here, that's right. If we were to remove this, sentence still makes the same sense, right? Would you believe ancient Egyptians like to bowl on alleys a lot like ours? Huh? Now, that would be so we're still adding information with sorry, someone popping in?
Shouldn't it be a question mark?
A question mark? Would you believe? Well, actually, it could be both. You're right. Who said that? Who said that?
Adam.
Adam. Okay. Well, I like your style, Adam. This would be an example of also a rhetorical question. So sometimes something that sounds like a question, would you believe, is also a statement because I'm actually trying to prepare something that's unbelievable. So that's kind of like using a turn of phrase. So you might not see that with a question mark, but if you're being technically correct, yes, there should be, because I'm asking someone, well, would you believe, right? But I'm not actually asking you something. I'm trying to tell you ancient Egyptians used to play crazy old bowling. Okay, but it sounds like a question, but it's not really because I'm actually telling you something. Is that a little confusing still?
So it's like both.
It can be both. And as a writer, it would be up to you as to how you would write that out. So in our examples, if we didn't find a question mark down in the in the answer sheet or the answer key, both would be correct in this case. Most of these are still going to be pretty hard and fast, but that's because it's what we call rhetorical question. Kind of surprised that it popped in that early, to be honest. Okay, would you believe? Let's move on down. Let's try the next one. Who wants to hop in? Who do we have? Meow, I can see you. Meow, do you want to try? No? Yeah? This one right here. Okay. So can you tell me what's wrong with this sentence? Okay. Are you making the boxes?
Someone else.
Let's, okay. Yeah. Capitalize. Okay. V. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Indians. You can get rid of the box. That one's okay.
Someone else is doing all this.
Someone else is putting it on there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all right. Someone wanted to mix with this one. But Cleveland Indians are named after Louis, what is that, Socoloxis? Whom was the first Native American to play professional baseball. All right. Oh, I moved it. There we go.
I think nothing's wrong with this sentence.
Yeah?
I
No one
think
play
so.
professional? Yeah? That's right. Yeah. You would capitalize. Those are always sneaky. Okay, so we'll go back to the beginning here. Thank you. Cleveland Indians are named after Louis Socoloxis, whom was the first Native American to play professional baseball. Okay. Whom? So okay, you guys can clear this one off here. I'm not actually sure. There you go. Who? Well, who versus whom depends on when it's actually the subject of a sentence. So this is actually gonna be kind of a longer tangent, but you know what? We're gonna avoid it this time because we'd be hopping into that with the first class. But when someone is talking about, say, let's say Santa Claus is coming down the chimney, and I want to know who is coming down the chimney. I don't know that it's Santa Claus. That means that the who is very much the subject of the sentence. So when I say who is coming down the chimney, I should actually be saying whom is coming down the chimney. But this is actually kind of an antiquated form of speaking. You don't see it written as often, but technically it would be whom. So in this case, the Cleveland Indians are named after Louis, I apologize, I'm not sure how exactly to pronounce this. I want to say Socoloxis. He is the subject of the sentence. So that means that technically, since the entire point of the sentence is to tell us the name of a person that this is named after, requires an M. So it's a whom, because the whom is the most important. Okay, now that kind of comes down to what we call a subject noun agreement. This might get a little bit deep, but again, we'd be starting off with that in class. And that means that you always have to have somebody and an action. And in this case, the somebody is the who. Does that make sense? Or is that just getting, everyone's eyes are glazing over? Okay, let's take a look at our examples. We already ran through them really quick, so very good. I think that was Adam that took a shot. Okay, wait, Aaron, good. Semicolon or a period, but we played it safe and we put a period. And I got to say that is the better solution. Aaron, are you still on here?
Oh, hi.
All right. I was just pointing out how correct you were with your assertion of the period versus a different punctuation, but you did have a choice, didn't you? Okay. So what can we have here? We had
ancient Egyptians is lowercase.
Yeah, I suppose. But you know what? It would depend on the context. If we were reading an article specifically about ancient Egyptian empires or what have you, then it could be capitalized. That one's kind of tricky because if you were to see that in an article, then you would assume it's a specific terminology. I guess in this case, they're just talking generally, so it doesn't require the A. But again, that is an example of where you can have it two different ways, and the context is what matters. Okay. Well, it sounds like some of you guys are a little chattier. Do you have anyone have any questions at this point? No?
Hi.
Hello, who do we have here? Is that Sylvia?
Yeah. Are you
Hi,
going to
Sylvia.
do something a little bit more complex?
About which part?
Like, because punctuation, I learned in grade 6.
Yeah. And you just want to know if we're going to be going over it again or starting from the beginning?
Like, learning something more complex.
Oh, sure. Then just punctuation. Absolutely. So pretty much week 1 and 2 would be a refresher for some. I think for some, it might be kind of like relearning something that maybe they didn't quite get. But yeah, we would get fancier. So you got your periods, your commas, right? We probably won't get into citations and quotation marks a little bit, brackets, M dashes, N dashes, exclamation marks, right? Let's see, what else do we have? Was there anything else more specific you were thinking of, or you don't say semicolons?
Maybe writing essays.
Well, in terms of what we have for the breakdown of the class, that would depend. I mean, an essay takes a longer kind of structuring, but there definitely will be room for writing papers. Depends on what we want to do. If you want to write reports, yeah. Who was that?
Pretty cool.
Oh, no. But yeah, I mean, the entire point of the class is to build up, right? So we're starting with things like punctuation, getting a little bit more into clauses, okay? Then as the weeks progress, we'll be talking a little bit more about a report and the difference between a report and an essay. And when we start getting into an essay, then we're getting more into structuring of how to make a persuasive argument. But some of that will depend on the overall age group that the class turns out to be. So, I mean, if we have, I don't know, say grade 4 to grade 8, or I can't remember what the range is. We'll have to tailor it accordingly. Did that answer your question, Sylvia?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. But the point would be to pretty much get as advanced as our class will allow us to get. And it really will depend on the overall mix. If I end up with having, say, predominantly grade 8 level students, then I'd be hopping into things a little bit differently. And I wouldn't probably be giving you the same crash course on the different uses of apostrophes and periods. But that's also why the material that I'm given is kind of broken down in a modular basis. So remember, the things that we're looking at right now, those are just the first 3 modules, week 1, 2, 3, technically, or as the book calls them. So that'd be very basic for some of you, but it would kind of ramp up fairly quickly as well. Make sense? All right. Okay, so let's see. We have more examples that we could be hopping through. So we've got more fun with commas. So right now, I'm really just hopping with the material, but what we would be doing for a class is looking at examples on the board before hopping in, okay? Oh, someone's already trying to tackle. Who's trying to tackle the first one here? Who's trying? Adam, are you trying? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you want to try walking us through it? Oh, you're still muted there, buddy. We can't hear you.
In the 1700s and the 1800s,
Yeah.
Peru bullfighters were women who fought bulls while riding horseback, and there's another and there's already an and. So
Yeah.
we turn that into a period, and that becomes capitalized, and that's where I got to. That was also
That's very good. What grade are you in, Adam?
5.
Grade 5. Well done. All right. Do you want to take that off there? Let's we can make this a little more expedient. Okay, let's hop down. We'll just hop right down to this guy. Okay, let's see how we did. In the 1700s and 1800s in Peru, comma, nailed it. Bullfighters were women, comma, who, perfect, right? We had to reconjugate that. Fought bulls while riding horseback, that's right, period. Okay, and what does that mean? Get rid of it, capitalize. So you're right, it made more sense to split that up. Was that your instinct there, Adam?
My sister always taught me to like, no 2 ands in a sentence. So I'm like, okay.
She's right. I mean, that usually means a redundancy, right? That means that we're being inefficient when we're reusing the same word and it's not adding information. All right. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, since we're kind of looking at, we'll do one more and then maybe we'll look at the whiteboard for a bit unless anyone has some questions. Let's try the next one. Who wants to hop in and try, for a hyphen? This will be interesting. Who knows what a hyphen is and wants to give it a try?
I really
Oh.
don't know hyphens.
Well, someone's trying. Who's this? Sherry? Hi, Sherry.
Okay. The first modern day Olympic Games,
Someone's
took
doing it.
place in Athens, Greece. Oh, there's supposed to be a comma at Athens. I can't write on it, so I.
Oh, that's okay. Here, I'll use the mouse, then you just tell me here, okay? So the first modern day Olympic Games.
Modern day, in between, there should be a hyphen.
Oh, okay. So hyphen here, okay?
Yep.
And I think you said took place.
Yeah, took place.
And did you say there was another one over here?
Athens, Greece.
Athens, Greece, a comma, okay. Why don't we go take a look? That's very brave of you, Sherry. Let's see. First modern day, hyphen. Good job. Okay, Olympic Games took. Good job. Place in Athens. Oh, but there was one more hiding right before in 1896, but
Yeah.
very close. Sorry?
Yeah, I thought there was supposed to be one more.
Well, your instincts are right on. Now, how can we tell? Well, we could actually rearrange this sentence a little bit differently, right? Because we could also start with Athens at the front, right? Because that would look kind of more familiar if we were going to say in 1896, comma, right? We're familiar with that kind of format, but in this case, it's coming at the end of the sentence. There you go. Who wrote that? They got ahead of me. Exactly. Man, you guys are good. Okay, so how about this? I'm going to take you off the sharing, for example. Now, someone before had some questions about punctuation. Does anyone want to ask some questions here? We can work with the board. We could talk about different kinds. If you want to hop in, but I'm just going to write some up here off the top of my head. We know that we've got the period. We've got commas. What else do we got?
Semicolons.
Semicolons, yeah, we do.
Is there a punctuation? Is there punctuation to separate some words?
To separate words? Yeah. So if you want to
Hyphens and
separate words,
apostrophes as
that would
well.
be a hyphen. And we had an example earlier. Do you remember the example?
Yep.
Yeah? What was it?
Okay, no.
No, that's okay.
Modern day.
Earlier, when we were going through the questions, we ran into this word.
Modern day.
Modern day. That's right. So how would we make that one word?
You hyphenated.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That sounded like Aaron. You hyphenate it, right? Okay, so that's how you can connect them. But hyphens can also be used. We got a loud mic at the moment. What's something else you'll see a hyphen in? Anyone want to guess? Okay, I'll give you a hint. Has anyone been to any graveyards lately? Say a tombstone.
Don't want to go there, sorry.
Sorry? Oh yeah, that's and nor should you. That's right. Be responsible. Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking more around a date with examples, with numbers, something in a hyphen. Anyone? No? Say if I went
101.
what does that mean? You see that?
Oh, like how long they live for, like in between.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, if we were going back to the graveyard example, but we can get away from that example. But for when I'm telling you a duration of dates, right? From January 4th to February 6th, that's another use of a hyphen. Okay, because we're just asking what can hyphens be used for? You can use them to join words. You can use them to tell me the duration of dates. that is the most common uses, but there's another one actually. Is anyone familiar with the difference of an M dash or an N dash? Anyone ever heard of that before?
What is an M dash?
I'm going to tell you. Have you ever been reading anything and you notice that sometimes when they use a hyphen and say someone's talking and they're like, no, Joe, don't open that. And the dialogue stops and there's just a line because they're getting like cut off, like their dialogue is cut off. You ever notice that the line is sometimes long and sometimes it's kind of short? You ever notice that?
They are?
Sorry?
They
Yeah,
are.
they are. Yeah. So there's two kinds of hyphens, and I bet you guys didn't even know that they existed, but they're there. So what's going on is pretty simple. So
Right here.
first, sorry,
Right here, look, see?
who's give me a second. Let me see who's talking. Who's
Uh,
talking?
Right here.
Sherry? Oh, yeah. Yes, thank you, Sherry. that is perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. So that's exactly it. That shows that someone's dialogue is getting cut off. They're being cut off or interrupted mid-sentence. So you can have yada, 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 and then that cuts it off, okay? Or we can have something can be written really well, which means that it is well, I think I'm gonna have to buy some new markers. But if something is well written, so these are both hyphens doing different jobs, but this one we call an M dash, and this one we call an N dash. Does anyone want to take a guess as to why that might be?
Because I'm pretty sure one is longer and one is shorter.
An M is longer
Like
than.
an M is kind of like wider than N because it's pretty much double it.
That is exactly it. This actually goes back all the way back to when they started printing presses for the first time. Sure. But the difference is that
Sibling.
the smaller one, longer one. I guess that would be more. Yeah, and that's it. So this actually is just because of when they actually used to use metal prints when they were making big newspapers, and they had to differentiate between, say, where a hyphen would be used instead of a longer M dash. I don't know why it is, but English is really funny for its conventions and its rules. So that's a fun one to hop into. But I'm going to show you something else. There's another use that hyphens have, and this can be kind of interesting. Does anyone want to take a guess? Maybe somebody knows. Anyone want to guess? Sherry, you look like you're pretty good with hyphens. Okay, well, I'll show you. Let's say, let's go for a sentence here. How about
But there's a line on the bottom.
line on the bottom?
Yes.
He's talking about an underscore.
Yeah, an underscore would be a little bit different. That is another line, absolutely, but totally different function. That's just for putting emphasis on something. You could use italics a very similar way. But this would be more for like, you know, when you mutter something under your breath. Oh, Sherry, you got one? Yep.
Wait, hyphen can be used in a book when someone's stammering. Like, I didn't do it. Like, you can. Put a
Yeah,
hyphen.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. You would keep putting those in there. It's because they're getting cut off. Or if you put two hyphens, okay. So let's say I got one. I'm gonna write a quick sentence. Actually, you guys need. I should write it bigger for you. We'll say. Okay. Hopefully you guys can read this. We'll get some new markers. Mr. Ham, comma, though happy, okay, comma, was sleepy. That's not true. Well, I'm sure at some point in my life it's true, but at the moment, this is just for my example. Okay, can you guys see my sentence okay? I apologize for, yeah. Okay, so we have Mr. Ham, though happy, was sleepy. This is not a very elaborate example, but if I took out though happy I can still say Mr. Ham was sleepy, right? We still have a full sentence. So, oh, Sherry, yeah, you have something?
Also, when you're like listing, like you have a list, you can put a hyphen, an option, a hyphen, an option.
That's a little different. That's usually when you're using them instead of bullet points. So it's slightly different. That's kind of when you're using the symbol instead of just an asterisk or something. You're right though. You can see them there, but a little bit of a different function. But in this example though, Mr. Ham, though happy, was sleepy. Okay. There's another way I can write this. If I decide to get rid of my commas, I could also put in brackets. Now I have Mr. Ham, though happy, was sleepy. Like this is a little secret piece of information aside, like I mumbled it under my breath. But there's another way I can write that. And the other way I can write that.
Can you do it like Mr. Ham hyphen and then happy though sleepy?
That's exactly it. I can replace my brackets with hyphens. But usually they would be tucked up. They'd be tucked up against this word here and this one. So there's more of a gap on this side. But I could have Mr. Ham hyphen, though happy, was sleepy. So what that means is that we can have a comma, brackets, or hyphens all doing the same job, depending on how we want to write, what we're writing. But technically, if I wrote that out with commas or with brackets, and I'm reading it out loud, I would always read it out loud the same way. It would still be Mr. Ham, though sleep, well, I forgot my own example, though happy, was sleepy. The brackets, the hyphens, the commas still tell me to pause, put a little piece of information, and then finish my sentence. So this is how we can show all the different kinds of examples that punctuation can do. So there's, earlier when I was talking about there's more than one way to write a sentence, or when we were correcting one, this is why. Okay? But knowing those differences are very key. And what's even more important is being consistent. So maybe some of you decide, I'm gonna be a novelist and I'm gonna write and make a whole lot of money writing stories. Awesome. In your writing, if you are gonna have a character talking, and every time they're talking, you want to have them have little sides like that, where they're always going to be, oh, it's a really nice day, but those clouds look ominous, but I'm happy and I'm going. Okay, those little side pieces of information. If you're going to use brackets, always use brackets. If you're going to use commas, always use commas. You don't want to keep jumping around with the different ways of doing it, because one, it confuses the reader, and two, it shows that you don't quite understand how they work. And that's a part of being a better understood writer as well. Anyway, that's kind of a quick tangent on, well, how to integrate the whiteboard. Generally, when we do a class, so I believe it'd be about 90 minutes, the lecture component will be looking at some of those examples and then writing some up here and then asking you guys to hop in and give your examples. We kind of did an interesting mix and did a little bit backwards this time around, but once you guys started hopping in, that's very useful for me, because I can understand where everyone's strengths are at. And so for example, Adam, I'm very surprised that we're not surprised, but impressed at where we're at for a grade 5 level, but it's going to be different for everybody. So hopefully this gives you an idea. A big part of it too is going to be giving you some in-class time to at least look at, say, when homework is assigned, so that you have time to look at them, ask me questions before, say, going out the door or closing off the session. And that's what we're going to be looking at. So it's kind of a success as we go. Do you guys have any final questions for me or anything at all?
No.
No?
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
How long have you been teaching?
About 3 years now. Before I started teaching officially, I used to run creative writing groups and clinics, and was also a lead editor. So I've been working with writers, probably about 10 years, but officially teaching about 3. Yeah, sure, you can just hop in.
What does tenacious mean?
Tenacious, oh, gonna put me on the spot. tenacious would be, it can be used positively and negatively, but it generally means energetic. That would be like a synonym. Tenacious would be pretty much having ambition without limit. You can't be talked down. So if you are going to, I don't know, push a boulder up a hill, you'd have to be pretty tenacious to do it by yourself and be like, yeah, because your goal would be pretty difficult. Tenacious can be used as an extreme. Usually it means someone is doing something very impressive, or they could be tenacious in how mean they are. And then they're doing something very negative. So it means an extreme, depending how you want to use it. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Which university do you teach at?
I teach at McEwen University in Edmonton. Who am I talking to?
Sylvia.
Sylvia? Yeah. I teach at the moment at McEwen, I teach English 102, which is argument and analysis. So that would be about the nature of persuasive argument, getting to know your audience. You know, if you're going to write a biology paper for an agreeable audience and you want to introduce new information, I work with you on that. Yeah.
Why is beginner always 101? Why isn't it like 001?
I'll tell you what, I will find out for you because I'm not exactly sure. I've heard rumors why, but what's funny is that English at McEwen no longer has a 101. Instead, 101 got split into 102 and 103, which is even more interesting. So I'm not sure, but English 101 usually means, actually, you know what? No, I think it's actually just a matter of record keeping, because generally 101 would mean, did you ever watch like a TV season of something? Okay, so if you're going to look up a TV season, the first episode is usually 101. 1 being the first year, season 1, and then 101 being the episode. So generally 101 would mean the first one means first year, and then 1 would mean pretty much first day or first entry of the classes. Because after 101, there's 102, there's 103, 114, 115. Does that make sense? I believe that's what it is. It's because it always starts off as just a record keeping.
Yeah, so then there'd be like 56, 72.
Well, there could be. I mean, it jumps around, so I'm not really sure. Yeah, Sherry.
What's the difference between like Shakespeare English and normal English?
Oh, that's a great question. Shakespeare English would fall into more of a study of literature.
The host said we've got to leave now.
Yeah, I think we're past our time. Yeah. But I'll just finish your question there. So essentially, English is often broken into 2 sections. So like English 102 is going to be more about writing in general, how to put together a paper, how to make a report, any kind of essay, anything at all. How do you academically represent yourself? English 103 would be studying novels, studying short stories, writing short stories, you know, Victorian era, getting into the history of English, right? Or of printed books. That would be the difference. History of literature versus writing for practical sake. Cool. Okay. Well, I think I'll let you guys go. Thanks for chatting with me. I found it very useful. Thanks for hopping in. It's always great for a teacher to be able to engage back and forth.
Bye.
Okay. We'll let you guys go.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. Thank you.
See you, Sherry.
你干什么不认真？就是叫拜的时候叫的特别大声，对吧？
Wendy, did you want me to hang around for a bit?
Yeah, it's good. I'm gonna close it. See you.
Okay.